Chapter 4. Logan. Things that had irked me for the last 2 years, like listening to the guys sing dirty versions of our school anthem, or wrestling in the corridors on the way to class, or pranking each other in the showers. Things I'd given up for so long became enjoyable once again. Even Josh noticed a difference. One evening, as we walked back to the dorms from the dining hall, he punched me on the shoulder and said, "It's really great to have you back, man." I could have sworn there were actual tears in his eyes. Jesus, the guy was so hopelessly loyal. I couldn't even give him a hard time about it, because I had tears in my goddamn eyes. I punched him back, and it felt so good to horse around again. 3 weeks after I laid eyes on the love of my life, I finally got the chance to talk to her. After dinner time, before lights out, the boarders had free roam of the grounds. Jerkout was known for its rolling grounds, endless carpets of lush green connecting the buildings with paths curling along the borders like graceful calligraphy. Most kids took full advantage of their surroundings and sprawled across the grass to hang out. The more adventurous, or those looking for quiet nooks to hook up, go further from the main grounds and sneak under the dark trees, past the tangle of branches and thorny blackberry bushes, and down to the river. The less outgoing went back to their rooms. The ambitious curled up at the library, and I checked out of Draycott and drove down to the animal shelter. Volunteering at the local shelter was Miss Taylor's idea. She'd given me a lengthy talk about the amazing healing powers of animals, yada yada, and I'd agreed just so she'd shut up. And it wasn't bad at all. I'd expected to be put to work scrubbing out kennels, but as it turned out, I was given the task of taking the bigger dogs out on walks. They didn't usually let anyone under 18 take the animals for walks, but Miss Taylor gave them a call, telling them how much it would help me. And since there were only a couple months left before my 18th birthday, the local shelter relented. I liked dogs, especially big ones. I liked how they were always panting, like they couldn't have enough of life, and they had to gulp down every moment of it. One of the dogs I was often assigned to walk was a monstrously huge and hopelessly friendly lab mix called Daddy. Daddy was a really sweet, hyper dog who thought he was the size of a chihuahua. So when I asked if I could take him out on extra long walks, the shelter employees went, "God, yes, please tire him out." It took me and Daddy less than 15 minutes to run the 2 miles from the shelter to Delilah Street. I could go faster, but Daddy was a bit overweight, and by the time we were done with the 2 miles, he was panting hard. Once we made the turn to her street, I tugged on Daddy's leash and slowed our pace to a brisk walk. I headed for number 1876. It was dark enough now for the streetlights to come on and the windows of the houses to glow soft orange. I bit my lip, savoring the way my heart rate increased slightly once I turned onto Delilah Street. I loved the anticipation, knowing she was there at the end of my journey, my prize, my perfect goddess, displayed through her window for me. Delilah's house was on the corner. Lucky me. It meant I could observe her from 2 different angles, and I didn't squander that piece of good luck. Over the past couple of weeks, I'd walked up and down the 2 streets, looking for the perfect position, one that would give me the best view. And my luck had held. No one had found that little camera I'd installed in a tree across the street from her house. I can't be here for you 24/7, Delilah, but I need you to know that I'm always with you. Always. I checked to make sure no one was around before reaching up to the second branch of the tree, where the camera was tucked nice and tight. Daddy chose that moment to give a particularly ruthless yank on the leash. The momentum launched me forward, and I pitched face first onto the sidewalk. The breath was knocked out of my lungs, sort of like when I first saw Delilah, except a lot less pleasant. Somehow, I still had the presence of mind to keep a firm hold on the leash, so Daddy's plans of a great escape were immediately dashed. The things I go through for Delilah. "Are you okay?" a voice said. A voice I recognized even in my dreams. Shit. Panic stabbed through my ribcage. Shit. Delilah. Had she seen me stretching my arm up into the branches? Was she wondering what the hell I was doing here? She was going to freak the fuck out. Nobody understands romance. And Miss Taylor would hear about this, and I'd be suspended again. Except this time, it would be worse. It would be so much worse. Calm down. She wasn't looking at me the way people sometimes did, like they thought I was going to do something totally off the wall. But I still had my fail-safe Daddy. He automatically cleansed me of all suspicions. I hoped. I stood up and brushed myself off, taking a moment to make sure my breathing was settled and my voice wasn't going to come out with nervousness. But when I did look up, I realized I was hopeless. God, she was beautiful. I caught myself and forced out a casual, "Hey." Then before my brain could catch up, I said, "Oh, hey, Delilah, right? She glanced up at me, recognition dawning on her features now that she could see my face. You're in my chemistry class, I mumbled. Yeah, I know who you are. She didn't quite meet my eyes as she said it, which was typical Delilah. Instead, her eyes hovered over somewhere around my chin. I dreamed of so many ways for us to meet. Me falling on my face was not one of them. And now her eyes were focusing somewhere over my shoulder like she couldn't wait to go. I struggled to say something that would put her at ease. I knew so much about her, but none of that information was usable. I couldn't possibly say, that Hainanese chicken rice dish you posted on Instagram 2 years ago and tagged as your all-time favorite food? I tried making it because I wanted to know how it felt eating something you loved. And it's really good. You got great taste. I can't wait to try all the other Singaporean dishes you posted about. Yeah, not so much. So, do you live around here? Ugh. Delilah nodded, still not meeting my eye. Yeah, that's my house right there. Do you live around here too? No, I'm actually from out of state. I board at Draycott. Delilah's eyebrows rose. I didn't know that they let you have pets at the dorms. Thank God for Daddy. Look at him, sniffing his own balls, not realizing he just provided me with the perfect conversation starter. I give Delilah a small smile. Don't want to creep her out with the full-on grin. They don't. He's from the shelter. I volunteered there once in a while, and they let me take him out on walks. I was careful not to sound like I was boasting. People did that so often. They talked about their time volunteering like they were Mother Teresa or some shit. Delilah wasn't the kind of girl who'd fall for that, so I made sure to keep it short. No biggie, just something I do. That's really cool of you, she said. The ghost of a smile reached her lips. Cherry lips. Maybe raspberry. I love berries. D. And she was finally seeing me. Really seeing me. She liked what she saw. I could tell. But before I could capitalize on the moment, she glanced back at her house and her mouth tightened into a thin line. I gotta go to the store. I'll walk you there, I said. No, I'll be fine. I cocked my head to the side. Come on, I gotta walk Daddy anyway. Daddy? Delilah grinned, and I caught a glimpse of the old Delilah, the one I seen in her pictures. It made my heart glow. That's such a cute name. Daddy perked up at the sound of his name, and I had to haul him back before he could pounce on Delilah and lick her to death. Where are my manners? I said. Daddy, this is Delilah. Delilah, this is Daddy. I leaned closer to her and lowered my voice. Careful, he's a bit of a perv. Delilah laughed and crouched down to scratch Daddy behind his ears. I got a whiff of her scent. Something that reminded me of pure white petals. I had to stop myself from scooping her into my arms and inhaling all of her. Hey, big guy, she murmured. Daddy sagged against her, panting happily. See? He likes you, I said. Come on, Daddy. Let's walk Delilah to the store. I turned and started walking in the direction of the supermarket before Delilah could answer. She was a natural follower. I knew this much, at least. But part of me still crossed my fingers tight and prayed she'd follow my lead. I smiled when I heard her footsteps walking toward mine. I searched for something to say. Again, I was faced with a mountain of information I'd so patiently gathered about her. None of it usable. I couldn't ask her about her volleyball, nor could I ask her about Tangji Zoo, nor could I ask her about Singapore. Or maybe I could. I mean, it was no secret she was half Singaporean. Most people will know stuff like that about their classmates, right? Quick, before the silence overwhelms everything. Singapore, I blurted. Sweet Jesus, if I could only punch myself in the face. Sorry, she said. The walls had clapped up around her, and she was looking at me warily. I just remembered, I think I overheard someone mention you're half Singaporean, I said. I was babbling. I was a train veering off the rails and I had to save it, steer myself back, or I was going to end up in a massive crash. Yeah, she said, still with so much caution. My mom. Great. I brought up my mom. This could not get any worse. She's one of the deans at Duke. Have you heard about the Duke NUS program? It was a desperate last grasp of straws. Her dad was a graduate of NUS. Maybe it was dirty to bring up this connection, but love and war and all with that. Her face lit up, and it was worth it. Yeah, I know about the Duke NUS program. Cool, I said, joy rising through my chest. Her smile, I swear. My mom's in charge of that program. Well, not in charge, but she's on the team. And she travels back and forth to Singapore quite a bit. She loves it there. Now it sounded like I was boasting, and I had to reel it back in because I didn't want to boast. I just wanted to make a connection. Wow, she breathed, her eyes wide. No way. That's amazing, Logan. Wow, she said again, and her gaze was fully on me, her attention all mine, and I was flying into the stratosphere. I love it there, she said. My dad's Singaporean, and he took me a few times. I didn't wait for her to realize she'd said, my dad's Singaporean, instead of, my dad was Singaporean. Did you have roti prata? My mom's always raving about it. Now she was beaming hard, and I could die happy. I really could. Yes, she said. Oh man, I love roti prata so much. I've been trying to find it here, but none of the Indian restaurants I've been to make it. The closest thing they have is paratha, and it's just not the same. That's because it's more Peranakan dish than an Indian one, right? Shit. Now I was mansplaining and whitesplaining. And back the fuck up, Logan. I mean, I don't know. I think I remember reading somewhere about it when I looked it up because I saw so many pictures of it on your Instagram. I'm probably wrong. No, that makes sense, she said, appraising me. I'm impressed you know so much about Singaporean food. Most people here don't know anything about Singapore. You know what people usually say when I tell them I'm half Singaporean? What? She pinched her voice high and squeaked. Oh, which part of China is that in? I laughed. No way. People here aren't that ignorant. I mean, really? Singapore is obviously in Vietnam. She narrowed her eyes at me. I'm kidding. It's right below Malaysia and next to Indonesia. I was a good boy. I'd done my homework. I could talk about Singapore for hours. She laughed again. I could listen to you laugh for days, and lightly slapped me on my arms. My skin tingled when her fingers touched me, and it felt like I was 12 years old. I swear not to wash my arm forever. She wants me. She won't slap just anyone's arms. So what are you getting at the store? I asked. As it turned out, I'd asked the wrong question. The walls were back up. Delilah frowned and stared straight ahead. Ice. There was a pause. Then I said, what do you need it for? It's just for my mom's boyfriend. Ah, yes. The ignoble Detective Brandon Jackson. I knew about Detective Jackson, and not just from the search on Delilah. A year ago, right around the time Sophie died, Detective Jackson and his partner had been put on a case at Draycott. They'd hung around the school for weeks, like a persistent and embarrassing rash. Detective Jackson was loud, obnoxious, and assumed everybody admired him, which of course turned the entire student body against him. I thought of him as a big, stupid, but well-meaning dog, not unlike Daddy. But Delilah did something when she mentioned him. She dropped her voice and gave a small, grim smile, as though she were afraid that mentioning him might summon him to our side. What does he need the ice for? I asked. Just stuff. Something was off. Something that felt big, lurking underneath us the way a giant sea creature did, wreathing right below the calm surface before bursting out of the water with his jaws open. I knew fear when I saw it. Even Daddy could sense it. He lifted his head and licked her hand, whining. Everything okay? I frowned in concern. Delilah turned away, but not before I caught her cheeks turning red. Yeah, of course. That's not what Daddy says. That coaxed a smile out of her, but she still looked tired, defeated. All the joy she shown moments ago had evaporated. Well, Daddy's wrong, she said. I frowned at Daddy. Are you losing your touch with the ladies, Daddy? The corners of Delilah's mouth lifted. I don't think Daddy's as good with the ladies as he wants you to think, she said. Ouch! Delilah laughed. A quick, nervous sound that was strangled almost as soon as it left her mouth. My grip on Daddy's leash tightened. I'd assumed when I went through Delilah's pictures that she curled into a tight, hard shell because the oil ring incident might have turned her and her mom into easy targets for the press. I never spared a thought for the possibility that her shyness was caused by something completely different. I imagined my fist crushing into Detective Jackson's meaty face and found the thought a pleasant one. I had to take her mind off of Detective Jackson. So, how you liking Draycott? Pretty weak question to ask. given she'd been there for 3 weeks, but I was running out of things to say. It's okay. I never thought I'd go someplace like Draycott. She hugged herself as she walked, her hands gripping her elbows. It made her look even thinner than she already was. Sorry, I kind of suck at conversations. You're better at it than you think you are, she snorted. Of course, I added. I'm only comparing you to Daddy, so the standards aren't exactly high. Another quick laugh that was strangled as soon as it left her mouth. Another flash of my fist slamming into Detective Jackson's face. What's he done to her? Delilah was reminding me of Sophie in the worst possible way. Those final weeks before they found the drugs in Sophie's room, she'd behaved the same way. Furtive glances, conversations weighed down with fear. I wasn't able to save Sophie. Hell if I was going to let the same thing happen to Delilah. I stopped walking and touched her arm lightly, ignoring the zap, the spark, the whatever it was that told me our bodies were made for each other. I didn't let my hand stay on her arm. Hey, I know this is out of the blue and we barely know each other, but if you need help, if you need anything at all, please tell me, okay? Delilah met my eyes then, and my breath caught in my throat. She wore Sophie's face, the expression of someone who was being haunted, the primal fear dancing frantically in her eyes. I don't know what you're talking about, she laughed, and the sound came out too high and too brittle. Delilah, I know when you're lying. I hope you don't think it's weird, but I've seen you a couple of times at the secret board, I said, taking a giant leap into the world of risk. At the lobby of the library at school was something called Post Your Secret, a giant bulletin board where students were encouraged to pin up their secrets anonymously. We used to have an election version, an app called Draycott Dirt, but it got out of hand and developed into a massive online bullying and trolling forum, and Miss Anderson banned any future such apps from being made. Then Lisa, the school librarian, suggested using one of the boards at the library as a more sensible outlet for students to let off some steam without it going out of control. And the thing became a huge hit. It was filled with all sorts of secrets. We weren't allowed to put out any identifying information, so the board was also a great source of entertainment, an ongoing game of Guess Who. Delilah's eyes were particularly perfect circles, and I wanted to reach out to hug her and tell her it was okay. I don't really post anything. I just like to look at the secrets there, she said. Hey, it's okay. I post on the board. Mostly stuff about Sophie. Vague musings that couldn't be identified. It's a good outlet for your feelings. For all our feelings. But if someone's hurting you, the board won't help. Let me help you, Delilah. Her eyes watered, and she blinked ferociously, taking in a shaky breath, and I wondered how anyone could hurt someone like her. But it was going to be okay. I'd make it okay. That's really sweet, Logan, but I don't know what you can do. There's nothing anyone can do. Sophie's words stabbed through my head. There's nothing anyone can do. I'm alone. Lolo. No one can help me. We can report it. You don't have to go through this alone. Delilah shook her head. You don't understand. He's a cop. And my mom and I are so hated after what my dad did. Brandon can do whatever he wants to us and nobody would give a shit. She took a shaky breath. There's nothing anyone can do. The school has counselors. They can help you. Hollow words, especially since I knew on a personal level how useless the counselors were. But I didn't want to leave her hopeless, and I couldn't tell her I would fix things. I would, but I'd have to be an anonymous benefactor. No, it's fine, really. If this gets out, if Brandon hears anything about it, she grabbed my hand, her grip feral strong. Logan, please, don't tell anyone. But if you want to help, you won't tell anyone. He'll kill me. I'm serious. There were no traces of exaggeration on her face. All right, I said. I won't tell anyone. Delilah let her breath go. Then she seemed to notice for the first time that she was holding my hand and dropped it, her cheeks reddening. Sorry, she mumbled. Don't worry about it. Time for another change of subject. Hey, how are you doing in chemistry? I am dying in that damn class. Her face brightened a little. Chemistry was her favorite subject. I love it. Miss Woods is awesome. For the next few minutes, she described her chemistry project, her face animated, her hands flitting back and forth like butterflies. She stopped when we got to the front of the supermarket and turned to me. Wow, I can't believe you just let me babble on about chemistry class. I grinned. It's mostly for Daddy's sake. He's really into chem. I wasn't really listening. She laughed. Thanks for everything, Logan. We stood there for an awkward second before she said, See you at school? See you. I made myself turn and leave instead of waiting around and watching her enter the store, which I wanted to do, but would no doubt freak her out. My mind was a wiring mess, going too fast, everything too bright and sharp-edged as I walked Daddy back to the shelter. Delilah was in trouble. Detective Jackson was an abuser, and here I was, just another boy in love. I could feast my mind on killing him in a dozen different ways, each more gruesome than the last. But the truth was, I was pretty much powerless. And Delilah was right. Accusing him was out of the question. His cut buddies would click into one giant, impenetrable wall. They'd do it even if they hated the guy. It was more about the principle of the thing. You just don't go after a cop. When I got back to Dricot, I was too amped up to go inside my dorm room. I briskly walked past all the main buildings, through the wrought iron gate at the edge of the rose garden, and into the trees. Past the thickest of blackberry bushes and among the cedar trees, there was a little clearing. The air was suddenly different there. Everything hushed as though I stepped into an underwater world. Sophie had shown me this place once. Well, not shown. I'd follow her and watch her as she rolled a joint with her best friend, the two of them smoking and holding it carelessly, aloof, and she looked so grown up and worldly, it was impossible not to fall in love. Later on, Sophie would let me come here, and I sit next to her, watching the smoke curl out of her mouth and wishing she let me kiss her. Nobody came here anymore. It was undisturbed. Even the smell was different. Wild grass and overripe berries and a hint of animals. Hey, Soph, I said, sitting down at my usual spot. Weird night. I breathed out and listened to the serration of the leaves around me, like they were nodding, listening. I talked to her tonight, I said. Really talked. You like her, I think. You guys have the same sense of humor. I took out my phone and scrolled through social media absentmindedly. I couldn't get Delilah's haunted expression out of my head. Was I destined to sit by once again while the girl I loved went through hell? Pretend I didn't know anything when she followed in Sophie's footsteps? Fuck, I muttered. For a moment, I wanted to fling my phone into the darkness, hear the satisfying crack as it shattered against the trunk of some tree. But I couldn't let my temper mar this place, this sacred spot. I took a deep breath, listened to Sophie shushing me. This place was Sophie. Shh. The breeze caressing my skin was her soft hands, lulling me into peace, telling me there was a way. There was always a way. It wasn't until later, as I laid in bed watching news clips on Facebook, that I found the answer to everything. Someone had posted a video of a police officer punching a woman, and the comments were rife with anger at the display of police brutality. And it clicked then. This was exactly what I needed. A video recording of Detective Jackson abusing Delilah and her mom. This is it, Delilah. The whole reason you and I met. Why we ran into each other in this vast world, when all laws of probability point to us missing each other, our lives never intertwining. Because, Delilah, I'm meant to save you, and I'm not one to turn away from destiny. End of chapter 4. Thank you so much for following along, and I'll see you guys next time in chapter 5. And if you like, don't forget to like, and if you want to subscribe, please subscribe. Bye.